Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, please remember to subscribe. And today I'm going to talk about to make a sort of analysis of a certain organization called the African Union, which is a continental union with probably 55 members at the moment, and located basically on the African continent. Think AU or the European Union, but in the African context. Now I'm going to make a bit of a disclaimer. The AU as such was actually replaced another organization which started earlier on in the 60s, maybe 63, in Addis Ababa with only 32 governments that time. It was just like during the decade of independence, and that was the Organization of African Unity. That was there, and it was replaced later on in probably 2001, 2002 by the African Union. So I'm gonna call out both organizations as one and just use the African Union as it is known now. Now I'm not gonna go too much into the details, the histories and the structure. You can always search that information, but I just want to go quickly into their mission. What were they meant to do? And you can go onto their website or any other descriptive or definitional website like Wikipedia, and what you're gonna see in their objective, the very first one is to achieve greater unity, cohesion, solidarity among the African countries and the African nations. Now, it's plenty of them. I'm not going to go one by one, but I'm going to start from this one because it is the top and the most important, and it is in the name, the African Union. Now, how did we achieve greater unity, greater cohesion, and greater solidarity among African countries and African nations? By the way, where is the difference between a country and a nation and a state? Again, I'm not too political. Not a political scientist, but quite interesting these words they use in this big organization. Having said that, I want to just say that from my point of view, and I'm happy to be challenged, I haven't seen any sort of improvement in African unity, cohesion, and solidarity since the 70s. I'm talking of the period, I was born in 75, so I'm talking of periods where I was able to read the news and listen, and I can start from, say, in the 80s. I was listening to the news. At that time, I can tell you a number of countries where there were wars, and the African Union had some sort of interventionist army. It's not really like a stationed army, but they would send army from the African Union members to help. I can remember in Burundi there was something called the MIPROBU, or Mission des Nations Unies pour la Protection, quelque chose comme ça. I'm using English, French, because we speak French, but it was a protection mission. In Congo, I think there is that. In Somalia, there was UNISOM or MISOM, something for Somalia. But I can tell you, if you go back to the 80s, you can see there were wars in Sierra Leone and Liberia with Charles Taylor. The African Union was powerless to stop one single madman to murder a number of people in that region. There was war between Jonas Savimbi and Jose Eduardo dos Santos in Angola. The war stopped, but I don't think the African Union was the ones who stopped the war. In Mozambique, it has been on and off, a war and then peace, war and peace, but the African Union once again isn't in a position to help stop that conflict. We can see now as we speak, South Sudan is divided. North Sudan, or the Sudan, Classic is also on fire, and the African Union is silent. They just go, they make meetings, they make declarations. Sometimes they don't even make those. They just drink and they go merry, and they just don't care. I don't see any one of them sort of solving these conflicts. Now we part from Sudan and South Sudan and the further south, Rwanda and the DRC are now a kind of in a sort of a war conflict. It looks diplomatic on the media, but on the field, people are dying, and the African Union is just kind of silent. I even have heard some countries in Europe, in Canada, United States, taking some sanctions against individuals and organizations that they think are involved with the conflict, but the African Union hasn't said anything about that conflict. Even the sort of meeting we heard that happened in the height of the war when Goma and Bukavu perhaps were, when Goma was seized by the rebels of the M23, it was the SADC in the South African nation or Southern Africa, and the East African community. The EU didn't have any urgent meeting and make any declaration. The UN was, but again, UN also seems to be a bit toothless most of the time. So it has been quite a failure to me if I do that assessment. It's been so many years, even if we consider the AU established in 2001 or 2002, that's 20 plus years. I don't see any of that being achieved in my opinion. The second of their objective is actually to defend the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the independence of its member state. Once again, like the Congo is crying loud, we're being invaded, our borders not being respected, but we don't see the AU doing anything to defend the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of the Congo, for instance. I'm just giving examples, but you could probably come up with some other failures. Number three is to accelerate the political and the socio-economic integration of the continent. I don't know what that even means. But if it means what we see with the European Union, with the same parliament, with the elections being happening everywhere, so they in Italy, in France, they can vote parliamentarians to sit in Belgium. I think that's where they are. Brussels, that's where their headquarters are. They've got one currency. I don't see that happening either, because why? If you are still fighting with this tribal war, the last thing in your mind is the social integration. I don't see them having one single passport or at least free entry into different countries. It is in the African, in the European Union, because that's what it was supposed to be, that you could be as an African, pick up your passport from Angola and go to Mozambique, go to Zambia, to Zimbabwe and beyond without the need for a visa. That's what I see as a socio-economic integration. Yeah, but it's not happening at all. Matter of fact, I heard that, I think I saw it in the news, that in Niger, one country in southwest, in northwest or west, they are revoking even passports of passport entry of some of the countries that were in the same ECOWAS or whatever group they have in the north. So it's getting worse rather than better. Number four is to promote and defend African positions on issues of interest to the continent and its people. Again, if you are not united, it is hard to defend a common position. For example, as I was saying, like the conflict between Rwanda and Burundi, if some countries are supporting Rwanda and the Congo, and that are supporting Congo, what are going to say, like which position are you going to take? So that's also something I haven't seen them promote a lot of issues on the continent or stand together when a country is being invaded. I don't know, like when Libya was invaded and the Gaddafi was overthrown, there was no outrage from the African Union. They didn't stand together and say you can't do this, or or lay a cases, I don't know, in the UN and say we think the United States or France or whatever went to Libya without any approvals and they did messy stuff. No, I didn't see that. Please tell me if I'm wrong and link some reference down below in the comment section. Now, number 5, I'm gonna read all of that. I've got all the time in the world. It is Friday afternoon and I'm off today. Now, number 5 is to encourage international cooperation taking due account of the Charter of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Encourage international cooperation. I don't know what that means. Encourage international cooperation with the account of the Charter of. Okay, number 5, we pass. Number 6, promote peace, security, and stability on the continent. Is this different from 1? Maybe it is, yes. But then again, I don't think Africa is more peaceful than it was in 25 years ago. We can, and I didn't see, basically what I'm saying is I don't see them intervening that much. Like now as we speak, there is a bit of tension between the government of Burundi and the government of Rwanda. Burundi accusing Rwanda of hosting people who are accused of plotting a coup d'etat in 2015, and Rwanda accusing Burundi of supporting or even hosting a rebel group that is accused, or at least whose members, the mature ones, are accused of being part of the genocide or have got genocidal ideologies. But we don't see the UN jumping in and say, hey guys, remember we're brothers and sisters, don't fight, let's sit together, let's do some diplomatic understanding. And the same should be happening between Congo and Rwanda. Basically the UN, the Africa AU ambassadors in the AU, I don't know, diplomats should be going back and forth between Kinshasa and Kigali and trying to broker peace between those two countries. That's what promoting peace and stability would be on the continent. And the same should be happening in Sudan and South Sudan. Number 7, to promote democratic principles and institution, popular participation, and good governance. Again, yes, I've seen them sort of rise up when there was a coup here and there. I can remember whenever there is a coup, obviously there is an outrage, but there's just communiques, like some sort of speeches. They don't normally go within a country, say if there is an election, they don't go there and say this election was rigged, or even before elections. If you, in Burundi for instance, I speak of a country I'm familiar with, there is a lot of outrage that the opposition is being sidelined, excluded from the voting process. Now, this is the time, not after the election, not after people have started to take up arms. This is the time to jump and say, hey, we hear there's a bit of rumors and the complaints. Where can we help? And they sort of probe and see if the system isn't following their democratic principles and put things in shape before the elections. If you come after, it's a little too late. It might be too late for many. Number 8, to promote and protect human and the people's rights. Human and people's rights. Human and the people's rights. Is there a human rights and the people's rights? In accordance with the African Charter of Human and the People's Rights. So the African Charter is coming on top of the UN Charter. I wonder if there are some human rights that are different for the UN in general, say for people in China, in Venezuela, and Poland, that is different with the African people, so that we have got a different charter. Anyway, and according to the human rights instruments, okay, to establish, that's number 9, on these human rights, I think that it seems to be, for me, the whole thing is one thing, really. If there is a war, there's no human rights. But even in the countries where there is sort of relative peace, in Uganda, for instance, the opposition leader is now in jail, going through military court and all of that. Lawyers are arguing he shouldn't be in jail, or he shouldn't be in a court, in martial courts, because it's not military. But the African Union is just quiet. I haven't heard them say, hey, Museveni, look, he's a guy of the opposition. He wants democracy in Uganda. In Uganda, by the way, they don't have any elections since I was a baby. I don't know when Museveni went to power. Never an election for, you can count, 50 years. Anyway, number 9, to establish the necessary condition which enabled the continent to play its rightful role in the global economy and the global negotiation. Okay, thank you for that. Conditions, Africans, my brothers and sisters. Number 10, sustainable development. Number 11, cooperation, human activity to raise the living standards. Number 12, to coordinate and harmonize policies. Number 13, development of the continent. Number 14, to work with the international partners to eradicate preventable disease and promote good health on the continent. Number 14 sounds to be a bit different. Number 13 also touched on to research and in science and technology. I don't know. Have we advanced? Can somebody point me to one thing? So number 13, I'm gonna read verbatim. Say, to advance the development of the continent by promoting research in all fields, in particular in science and technology. Is the African Union supporting, sponsoring, financing, establishing any research institute, or maybe research government research, say universities in science and technology? Do they have maybe a scholarship scheme for young Africans wanting to maybe go into these fields, maybe study into prestigious universities? I don't know. Can somebody point me to where this is being done? Because as I said, we are 24 years down the line. There should be some sort of thing going on if we're serious about these objectives. Number 14, and this is the last one. I'm not sure if what I'm reading is a summary or if that is it, is to work with the relevant international partners in the eradication of preventable diseases and the promotion of good health on the continent. I don't know. I think we did try to eradicate Ebola. I think there is this mpox in Africa that is also under mastery. I would say it's not making too much damage. So that's, again, I'm not sure if the UN is involved or WHO. But there are a lot of preventable diseases on the continent that we can eradicate if we put a lot of money and the science into research. The mosquito is killing a lot of people with the malaria and the tsetse, whatever, fly or whatever. I think there is a lot that can be done to eradicate a lot of disease on the continent. Cholera, for instance, and dysentery, they are diseases that have been eradicated around the world. TB is on the way out in many countries. Excuse me, I'm gonna drink some water if you don't mind. So malaria is really a big thing. I think the African Union should invest a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of science into eradicating those diseases in particular. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Again, I probably mostly insisted on the unity part of things, the as they call it here, the first objective, unity, cohesion, and the solidarity. I think there's a long way to go, and that's quite a bit of a shocker. So there you go. If you've got any different opinion, I'm happy to raise those. I'm African. I love Africa. It's my continent. It's my land. But I'm pushing for greater accountability. I'm pushing for greater cohesion as the UN, the AU objectives are stating. Okay, folks, it has been a very long video today. I wanted to go through everything to make sure I didn't miss any important facts. And feel free to leave some comments, and feel free to continue supporting my channel and suggest some interesting topics. I have got a list, but I'm happy to get some more input. Thank you guys. Have a good one, and enjoy the weekend for those who are viewing this video today or tomorrow. Cheers.